Thank you for those words, and thank you to all of you for being here. It is wonderful to join you, to see so many individuals of faith, people of faith. To the young Americans in the audience in particular, thank you for being here and for taking time from your summer. You know, the Trump administration is an administration that is deeply committed to faith and to freedom. And you see that in so many ways. As Secretary of Labor, I'm charged with an important task. My job is to work with the greatest workforce in the world, the American people. To find opportunities so that they can do something very important, so that a neighbor can offer a neighbor a wonderful gift, the pride of a paycheck. And I want to dig deeper into what that means, and I want to dig deeper into some stories that you may not hear in the media, stories of heart, stories of success, stories of what this administration is doing. Let's begin with the economy. This economy is not only strong, it is the strongest in our lifetimes. Since January 2017, this economy has added 5.4 million additional jobs. Unemployment rate is lower than it's been in 50 years. Wages matter. It is great to see wages finally growing. And they've been growing by more than 3% for 10 straight months in a row. And you don't hear much about this, but the lowest wage levels are growing the fastest. The bottom 10% of wage levels are growing at more than 6%. You don't hear about that in the media. Record lows for African American unemployment, all-time record lows for Hispanic unemployment, for Asian unemployment, for unemployment with Americans with disabilities, for veterans. We can go through category by category. Here is the message. All Americans are doing well. And let's talk about growth. 2 years ago in May 2017, the president submitted his budget. And the budget said we're going to have 3% growth. And all these critics came out and said that's impossible. President Obama's former economic advisor said you can believe in 3% growth when you believe in the tooth fairy. Well, we need the tooth fairy here because we have had 3% growth and it's been achieved. Now, some want you to think that this just happens, that this is the natural state of the economy, that it was trending this way. That's not what they said 2 years ago. This doesn't just happen. It is a result of vision, and it's the result of leadership and the result of hard work. And here's where it started. It started with tax cuts. And if you hear from the president, he will say, they came to me and said, let's have a tax reform act. And the president says, no, I did not want tax reform. I wanted tax cuts. And he said, I wanted the Tax Cut Act. He tells a great story about that. But tax cuts matter because it means more freedom. It means that those that earn a paycheck can keep more of their paycheck. It means that those small business owners can keep more dollars to reinvest and grow their businesses and provide more skills to their employees. And when you grow a business and you provide more skills to employees, what happens? The employee takes more money home and spends that money and grows the economy further. So it began with tax cuts, a promise made and a promise kept by President Trump. But he didn't stop there. He said, I want deregulation. And he told all of the cabinet, look at all those regulations on the books and get rid of the ones that aren't needed. And we talk about deregulation a lot in Washington. But what does it really mean? It means restoring freedom to the American people. And here's why. If a regulation isn't needed, why should the government be imposing that rule on the American people? Deregulation is all about returning freedom to the men and women of America. And so the president said, I want to remove 2 regulations for every new one. That's not what we did. We far exceeded that goal. The Department of Labor last fiscal year removed 18 major regulations. But our ratio is really hard to measure because we had 0 new regulations. Our ratio was 18 to 0. We removed $3.3 billion in regulatory costs from the economy, the second most deregulatory agency in government. You know, in Washington, I have found that people throw around billions like it's natural. It's kind of hard to understand what $3.2 billion means. If you measure it in the amount of time people took, that means we removed 40 million compliance hours from the economy, 40 million fewer hours that small businessmen and women had to spend complying with government. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some issues that we're working on proactively that are oh so important. And I want to talk a little bit about opioid abuse. The Department of Labor in many ways is at the forefront of this battle. This is an issue that hits urban, rural, suburban, wealthy, middle class, underprivileged, every race, every creed. It's awful. In 2018, we saw 43 fewer workplace fatalities. You know, the media says that we're not enforcing the law, that we're not doing enough inspections. Here's the bottom line. There are 43 fewer deaths in the workplace, 45,000 fewer injuries. That is good news. But if you dig deeper, you see that the biggest increase in workplace fatalities came not from actions an employer took, but from deaths in the workplace because of drug overdosing. A survey of individuals not in the workforce found that more than 40% took a painkiller not last month or last week, but yesterday. And that 30% of men not in the workforce took a prescription painkiller not last month or last week, but yesterday. And that is a national crisis. President Trump has been very clear on this. He ordered all of us to take action. And here's what we did at the Department of Labor. We supervise the workers' compensation programs for the largest employer in the United States, the federal government. And we put restrictions on prescriptions. We put medical professionals working with the doctors that prescribe. We saw a 53% decline in new opioid prescriptions lasting more than 30 days. A 65% decline in claimants that were prescribed a morphine equivalent dose of 500 or more. When you are seeing in 1 year a 53% decline, that tells you, 1, the old system was broken, and 2, solutions can be found. This is a disease of the body that seeps into the soul. The president's well aware of this. He is focused on this, and this is something we need to address. I want to talk about a second issue that's also an issue of compassion. And that is, how do we work with individuals that were imprisoned for wrongs, no apology, what they did was wrong, but when they leave prison, they need to reenter the workforce. And this is another issue that the president is well aware of and very focused on and leading an effort on. And I want to tell you a story of an individual that I met at an example of a group that we're working with. His name is John Ponder, and he was a bank robber. And then in prison, he found faith. And when he left prison, he went to the agent that worked the case that put him in jail for years and years and years. And he said, let's change other lives. And so he started Hope for Prisoners. He worked with this agent. And they are helping individuals re-enter society. And I love what he says. He says, we are trying to deliver to an employer an asset and not a liability. We are trying to make it so that individuals can be reformed and active members in our society. And here's how I met him. We put together a day where folks from all over the nation, faith-based groups, nonprofits, came into the Department of Labor to learn about grant opportunities, to learn about how they could participate in our efforts. And here's why I did that, because so many small groups around the nation don't know how to access those opportunities that are available in the federal government. And that is particularly the case for groups of faith. So something that is important and critical and that we're working on is, how do groups of faith access federal grants and federal funding? Because those groups of faith need to have equal access to all those federal opportunities, something they haven't had in the past. Let me conclude by saying this. Yesterday I was in Alabama, and I went to Alabama to announce a new partnership. A partnership between businesses and community colleges, and they all came together to offer young men and women 5,000 work opportunities, 5,000 what we call apprenticeships, alternatives to college. You know, folks are told college is the only path. There's so many paths to success in life, and college isn't the only one. And so we're talking about apprenticeships in the administration. And I was in Alabama, and businesses came together with the community college to offer 5,000 earn and learn experiences, apprenticeships. And the students were excited by the prospects of learning skills in advanced manufacturing. They were looking at jobs that were paying more than $60,000 a year upon completion. And in Alabama, that goes really far. Their excitement, though, struck a chord in me, and it reminded me that people want a job. People want a job. This is how we're made. The Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden and didn't say idle. He said work it and keep it and take care of it. We are made to want to work. We are made to be stewards, to be active participants in our life, our upkeep in our world. And this needs to inform and shape our government policies. To see dignity in a day's work, not dignities in taking opioids. These are fundamental truths upon which not just our faith, but our nation was built. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator, our Creator, with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which means the pursuit of a living. We owe the same dignity to all Americans, the opportunity to work, whether it be the individual who builds a hospital or the individual that works in the hospital, the individual who goes through an apprenticeship program or the individual that goes to college, whether the person be a carpenter or whether the person be a physician. And this is something the president understands. We have a president who respects life. We have a president whose deregulatory efforts are returning liberty to the American people. And we have a president who presides over an economy with more open jobs than we have individuals looking for jobs. And this means we have a greater opportunity than we've ever had for life, for liberty, and for the pursuit of happiness. We have an economy that makes each of our lives individually a little bit better, and collectively, our nation, under our president, much, much greater. Thank you very much.